So we're here with Stann Efferding. I'm saying your name correctly, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Stann, I know you've been in the industry for a long time. Ex-champion bodybuilder, champion, not ex-champion. I should say you're still lifting heavy weight, right? You're still powerlifting?
Yeah, I'm trying not to hurt myself, but I'm still doing what I can in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're still active, but just for all those people out there that may not know your background, because I guess with millennials in our readership, there's a new consumer every couple of years, so they may not know your badass reputation. But for all those kids out there, just give us a little rough background. Who's Stann?
IFBB pro bodybuilder, the world's strongest pro bodybuilder, set some world records in powerlifting in my time. I'm 50 now, so I'm just trying to stay ahead of Father Time and do no harm. But I had my heyday, and now I'm just trying to help others enjoy the same with education and putting out a great program of dieting and seminars and touring and talking to folks and trying to help them reach their goals.
Yeah, kind of like preventive medicine, and not just a pharmaceutical aspect, but preventing injuries. You know, lifting right, eating the right foods, letting the biological clock, tick longer.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. And there's so much. I mean, you're 50 now. There's so much. I know back in the day that the power lifters, not just bodybuilders, but power lifters, was kind of more of like trial and analysis, right? You were your own guinea pig.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's some great coaches along the years, but now there's just so much more information you have access to. We're kind of able to pool that information, pick from the methods and philosophies that actually provide us more benefit and less injury.
Yeah, less risk. And so what do you think has been the highlight of your career in either bodybuilding or powerlifting?
Well, I tell you, it's still going. It's crazy. Obviously, getting the IFBB Pro Card training with Flex Wheeler was a huge thing for me. In terms of powerlifting, setting world records is great, but the team of people that I worked with was extraordinary, and the amount of information that I learned between Mark Bell and Eddie Cohn and others over the years. I think it's the opportunity to train with great athletes and great coaches and learn so much. Even now, I'm retired. I'm still learning as I go. So, again, back to how much great information is available right at our fingertips now.
Yeah, it's amazing. Literally, so many people forget that we're always learning. You can be 60 years old and learn something. So it's like Socrates always said, you're always learning. Life is a school book, So, and yeah, you're right. As far as having so much information at our fingertips with the internet, even our cellular phones now, you could just look things up. And tell me a little bit about your relationship with Live Well. Now, I know you've been with them for a couple years.
Boy, over a decade.
Okay.
Many years ago, I opened up a call center. I had an offshore call center in Panama.
Okay.
I owned a telecommunications company in the U.S., and we did business in 22 states, over 100 employees. And we had a lot of bilingual or Spanish-speaking customers, and so I opened a bilingual call center down in Panama. And while I was down there, I went to the clinic that was down there that Dr. Michael Sigler owned as part of my powerlifting, of course. I was always in trying to make sure my knees were okay and my elbows and shoulders and everything else. And they did even more than that. They did liver sonograms, EKGs, and of course they did HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And so I was damn near, oh yeah, it's huge. I was damn near 40 at the time. And so we did some blood work and, was able to optimize a few things. And he took me through, a whole battery of tests. And that's where I met him. And we've worked together ever since.
Yeah, looking not just at the sport, but the practice and the art of bodybuilding and powerlifting in a much more scientific value, taking care of your body, keeping the engine clean, as they say, and like you said, the hormone therapy, the testosterone therapy. A lot of people overlook that using preventive medicine to avoid things even like heart attacks, later on in life. A lot of that stuff could be prevented. We're looking at it right now, and that a lot of the younger people, I don't think that they're keeping their engine clean. They're using the stuff, but they're not doing all the follow-up exams and the stuff they need to be doing to make sure that nothing is not functioning correctly.
Well, maybe they don't want to know. I was just the opposite. I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, and I was trying to figure out how I could make sure and stay healthy, because that improved my performance if everything was healthy. If your liver and your kidneys and your heart, obviously I did it to optimize performance. I didn't necessarily do it thinking of longevity, to be honest with you, although it has helped in that regard, because I was able to mitigate potential damage along the way by doing things, by getting regular blood tests and by monitoring levels in my organs and my heart, etc. So, I did blood tests a lot. I think that at a very minimum that people should get, who are going to be competing in sports, should get one right away. And this isn't just about performance-enhancing drugs. It's about whether or not you're vitamin D deficient or iron deficient, or whether you have some sort of insulin resistance issue.
Yes.
All of that can be remedied if you know what it is. Then you can go about tackling the problem and optimize performance as a result.
Absolutely. I always tell a lot of people, like, listen, if you're going to do a checkup on your car every business quarter, why wouldn't you do that a couple times a year with your body? Some basic blood work, And
it's not cheap, there's for sure. It can cost a few $100s to get a test. But when you see something that's out of range, and then you implement some sort of corrective action, a month or two later, you don't have to get all the tests. You just test the few items that you're trying to correct. And in doing so, you're going to optimize performance. I realized huge improvements in performance as a result of little things like vitamin D, for one. And I've also been able to use those same lessons that I learned and implement them with great athletes who are experiencing things like insulin resistance. So you can change their diet in order to optimize nutrient partitioning. It improves the ability to gain muscle as opposed to gaining too much fat. So there's been a lot of lessons I learned that I now utilize with athletes that I train.
Okay, what would you say is for anybody, just getting into the hard part of bodybuilding or powerlifting, they're getting really serious. They're using a lot of supplements. They're probably using other sports enhancement. What basic blood work would you have them do? What type of tests?
Well, there's a pretty comprehensive panel that I recommend. If you're in the United States, you can use my site at stannefferding.com, and I have a button on there for blood tests, and that really just takes you to a company called Private MD Labs, and then you can just go down to any lab corp, get a blood drawn, and they'll email you the results. So you can do it right from home if you're uninsured. If you are insured, you can go to the same site and print out the test and take it to your doctor and request to get those. There's 3 pages, probably over 100 tests on there. Some key elements, obviously, are going to be your red blood cell count to make sure that, that you're not too elevated. Iron, you don't want to have too high of iron. You don't want to have too low of iron. Women tend to be low in iron. Obviously, your blood sugars are hugely important in terms of optimizing performance, because insulin sensitivity is going to dictate how well you utilize carbohydrates. Obviously, testosterone, estrogen,
creatine levels in the liver.
Yep. All of those things, the liver and kidney enzymes, your AST, ALT, your creatinine, those are very important to monitor. There's a host of other things such as cholesterol, and more importantly, C-reactive protein, which is an inflammation marker that's more closely correlated to some future cardiac event. And those are the kinds of things that you can see from a blood test, along with many, many, many more. I just named a few that can help you to optimize performance.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good for our readers to know. Obviously, all this has subtitles along the bottom line there. We can't see them now, but they'll be there when this goes up on the internet. So, again, you met Dr. Sigler about 10 years ago. How is it you connected? You just stopped by his clinic, his office there, or how was it that you guys were able to really connect?
I think so. I think that, maybe through a friend, I got introduced to him. And then, at the time, he was doing, blood tests and wellness exams, and that was, it was a good opportunity for me to get in and get that done. And they offered so much more at their clinic. Again, I had, they did an MRI, they did a sonogram, they did X-rays, I was able to get my knees, my liver, my heart, everything all looked at.
All in one shot.
Over the years, all in one shot.
Yeah,
and I've done things like that over the years. If you have an elevated cholesterol, you don't know if that means that you're having any kind of calcification in the arteries, and so you can follow up that with another test. You can get a VAP test, is what it's called, to see if you have large or small particulates. And then one step further, now it's relatively affordable to go in and get a cardiac angiography where they use the radioisotopic dye, and then they take you through an MRI machine, and they can see if you have any calcification in the arteries. This is something that between blood pressure and any kind of calcification of the arteries, those are two things that can drastically improve health outcomes for people who are concerned about their heart health. If you know about those things in advance, then you'll be much more cautious, or you'll implement some sort of corrective procedure to make sure that you limit your exposure to that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of natural remedies out there. I mean, stuff you could buy just at a regular nutritional store, natural store. If you catch it early on enough over the years, it's like you said, preventive medicine.
Yeah, I talk about a lot of this in my vertical diet program that I've recently posted on site that I use with all of my athletes. I've been using it for years with guys like Hafthor Bjornsson, the Mountain from Game of Thrones, and of course Brian Shaw, 4-time world's strongest man.
That guy's well known.
Yeah, and some of the greatest,
talk
strength
about
athletes
pressure
in the sport.
Guy
That's
slipping
right.
1,000 pounds over his head. There's some heart pressure for you.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And even with, a guy like Flex Wheeler, who has a pre-existing condition, a kidney replacement, we had to be cautious, use blood tests, monitor his creatinine levels for his kidney while he was training for the Mr. Olympia. And we implemented some diet changes along the way that helped improve his creatinine while he was training for a show with a replaced kidney. So these things can be hugely helpful. I go over all of them in detail. And it doesn't necessarily have to be some sort of supplement remedy or some sort of drug remedy, like a medication, like blood pressure medication or statins or anything like that. There's a whole host of things that you could do to bring down blood pressure almost immediately. And the reason I focus on blood pressure is because it's one of the most dangerous things that you can subject yourself to.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a quick, 3 to 5 point blood pressure primer here so that people know, because it's very common in the industry. Particularly in the off season for bodybuilders, or all year round for powerlifters and strongmen athletes. And, I think one of the biggest things is that people lose sleep due to sleep apnea, which drastically increases blood pressure. Yeah. And so I harp on getting a CPAP, and I do everything I can with my athletes to make sure that's one of the first things they implement.
Absolutely.
And you can reduce your blood pressure that way. A couple more key elements with respect to blood pressure is calcium. If calcium helps relax the blood vessels, and so you can bring down blood pressure just by having adequate calcium intake. And calcium is improved, absorption is improved by an adequate vitamin D intake. And most of the athletes that I work with, including myself many times throughout my career, they'll end up with low vitamin D. And that has ramifications that are far beyond what you might consider normal for a vitamin, including sleep and blood sugars, but also improving calcium absorption. If you get adequate calcium and magnesium, your blood pressure can correct itself significantly in a very short period of time. And the next thing is your thyroid. If you have slow thyroid function, which often happens when you're eating a lot of proteins and a lot of fats and training very hard and not sleeping enough, you'll get a suppressed thyroid function. Plus, with performance-enhancing drugs, oftentimes those impact the liver, which also suppresses thyroid, T4 and T3, from being processed and utilized in the system. So thyroid function is huge, and this is a monster. This isn't a small thing. This could be a 20-point change in blood pressure.
Wow.
And the way you can improve thyroid is a fewfold. You can improve the function of the liver, and we do that with a little bit of fruit. Fruit tends to keep the liver very happy. We use it frequently throughout the day. And secondarily, some iodine. And I like to use cranberry juice because it's rich in iodine, but you could do an iodine supplement, or you could put iodized salt in your food. And people with blood pressure problems tend to shy away from sodium.
Of course, yeah, I was just about to say, salt, wait a minute, isn't there a contrast there?
And just the opposite. And I'll tell you that the problem with limiting salt is it also limits performance, and it also thickens the blood, which depletes the amount of oxygenation that you get throughout your body. So you're recovering slower, your performance is poor, and when you increase sodium, you have more energy, more stamina, better recovery, better oxygenation of the blood. So it's outstanding for so many things. But how do you manage the historical hysteria or perception that that's going to raise your blood pressure? You manage it by having adequate calcium, adequate magnesium, adequate iodine. All of those things will drastically improve performance and improve blood pressure. So I don't mean to go off the rails.
No, not at
as
all.
long as
Very
we're talking
interesting
about,
stuff.
yeah, these are very specific things that I do and very simple things I do that greatly improve performance for some of the best athletes in the world.
So eat some more fruit, maybe have some cranberry juice, just a little pinch of salt here and there. Don't go overboard. And there's
CPAP.
CPAP. Yeah.
The CPAP.
Yeah,
Yep.
CPAP machine. You know, a lot of guys, and I'm one of them, I'm the most guilty, you know, they just don't want, maybe because they sleep with their girl, their wife, or it's just uncomfortable. But I have talked to a lot of athletes, including Fakhri Mubarak, who's coach as well, and he says literally changes his life.
I'm glad you said it and not me, because that's the word I use, and I've been around 35 years in this business, and I don't say that about very many things. I've seen all the hype, I've been through all the fads, and I don't get excited about supplements and creatine and whey isolate. It's not my thing. It's not my bag. I like food, but when it comes to a CPAP, that is life-changing. When you're not holding your breath all night, imagine how much that improves performance and well-being and health. And it's just astounding to me that large guys, anybody north of 230, 240, especially 300, 400 pounds, as some of these athletes I work with, if they don't have a CPAP, that's just incredibly
dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous. You're right.
Long term. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm about only 200, and I need one. So that's you know, that's one of the things.
Yeah.
If you're even, because obviously most of our readership, they're just weekend warriors. You know, guys going to the gym. And they want to lift around the weight, but a lot of them, it's just common talk around the gym now. Sleep apnea is becoming a syndrome that's becoming more and more prevalent in today's mainstream society, where, you know, 10 years ago, people think you're a retard or something if you had a mask like that. You had to sleep
That's
with
funny
that.
because I've been wearing one since the mid-'90s. So I learned this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And people want to know, what was the secret to? I was 135 pounds when I was a freshman in college. So I was not genetically predispositioned to be a pro bodybuilder or a world record powerlifter. And so when I harp on these simple little things, I don't believe that they're simple at all. I believe that they're the single most important thing that was critical to my success was the fact that I slept very, very well, very often, 9 hours a night. When I was at my strongest and my best, that's what I did. The longer you sleep well, of course, quality sleep, the stronger you will get, the more muscle that you will build, the more fat that you will burn, the better all of your health markers become.
That's right. A lot of people forget you burn fat in your sleep as well. And that's when the growth hormone is going best, in the incubator.
You improve testosterone, you suppress estrogen, you increase insulin sensitivity, you reduce blood pressure. All of that happens during sleep. And then secondarily to that, I was very, very particular about my diet. And as you know, most of these people in this industry are very obsessive about never missing a meal. And I was that guy, and I never missed a meal for damn near 30 years. I prepackaged everything and carried it everywhere I went, and I was obsessive about it. And that's where the big payoff was. Everybody trains hard. That's the fun part. Yeah, that's the easy part. So it's outside the gym, and I hate to keep harping on it, but it's so critical. If you want to change your performance, it's not going to come in some fancy workout scheme and set and rep and some magic split or some superfood from some berry from some, tropical island. It doesn't work that way. It's the fundamentals. It's, how many 9-hour nights of sleep have you gotten in the last 30 days? And if your answer is 1, then there's a lot of room for improvement. If
Absolutely.
90% of the time you're sleeping 6 hours or less, then this may not be the business for you.
Yeah.
A
lot of people forget that. It sounds like, I think you should do like a raffle for somebody to be able to fly in and go grocery shopping with you. I mean, literally, going grocery shopping with you would be a real eye-opener for some of these amateur athletes, bodybuilders or powerlifters, even bikini athletes. It's really all what goes into your shopping cart that makes a difference.
It's hilarious you'd say that, because there's a video on YouTube, probably 500,000 views, of me and Matt Wenning back in Columbus, Ohio, going grocery shopping for Hofthor and Brian Shaw. And we went to Costco and ran up like $1,000 bill, picking up all the things that they needed and that was just one trip to get them through the Arnold Classic strongman competition. And I spent the whole week cooking pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of steak and food for them. every single day. And that's, to me, was the most important thing. If I thought it was critical to, to go down and train with them, I would have. But I didn't need to. What was critical is that I got their diet in order.
That is true, yeah, because, those guys are lifting, burning how many calories? That's a lot of stress on the body, and then they got to eat all those calories again. That's more stress on the body. So tell me about, you're going to be taking a trip to Peru, Lima, Peru. Tell me about that.
Well, I don't even remember where all I'm going. I haven't figured all that out yet. I'm not sure.
It's going to be some sort of like muscle camp about techniques, correcting bad techniques.
I'm all over the world. I was in 9 countries and 22 states in the last year, and I've got a similar schedule ahead of me. And so anywhere and everywhere I can go to try and get these messages across to folks and teach them more about nutrition and about hydration and about recovery and about, proper lifting techniques, then I take the opportunity to do it. It's been very rewarding for me at the same time.
Well, that's awesome. That sounds a lot of fun. Please remind us where people can follow your social media, all your websites, all the propaganda.
Yeah, everything's at Stann Efferding. You can go to stannefferding.com. You can go to Instagram at Stann Efferding. My Facebook is Stann Efferding, and even my email address, stannefferding@yahoo.com. So it's easy to find me.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, if you could give one piece of advice, I know you've been giving advice all through this interview, but one piece of solid advice for, people that are just getting into 18-year-old, 20-year-old, 24-year-old athletes, just getting into the gym, with the buckets of protein, all the test boosters, all the bullshit, right? What one piece of sound advice would you offer them before they pick up their next dumbbell?
Well, I'll throw a little triage at you.
Okay.
First of all, you don't grow in the gym. You don't build muscle lifting weights. You just break them down. And so this diet and sleep is going to become critically important for actually growing. And beyond that, it's a matter of consistency. That's the hardest part about any program. Consistently training, consistently sleeping well, consistently eating. And when they start tracking that and consistently do that, then it's a marathon, not a sprint, and they'll just continue to grow and grow and grow. There's always an opportunity to improve those 3 things.
It's funny you say that. People keep on asking what, the magic of Oxygen Gym out in the Middle East, and people are like, the magic is what Venice Beach used to be 20, 30 years ago. There wasn't much out there. You would go lay out, sleep, eat as much as you could, go lift, and go sleep again.
It's really interesting you bring that up, because I used to go to Venice Beach back in the 80s to Gold's in Venice. And I used to watch the guys, and they all trained twice a day, 6 or 8 times a day, and slept 9 hours a night. Every single one of them. I talked to them. That was their routine. They lived, breathed, ate, and fought it. And then you mentioned Oxygen Gym. I was just out in Kuwait, and I met with Bader Budai, and we had this very same discussion about how people think there's something special about what's going on over there. And he said, this is all we do. They train twice a day. They sleep 9 hours a night. They eat 8 times a day, and there's no distractions, and that's all they do. And everybody thinks there's some secret.
It's getting rid of this.
That is a big distraction. There's no question.
Big distraction. The girlfriends, the hoochie mamas, I'm an 80s guy, so I got to throw that word in there. But, all those things now that are so antagonistic that distract us, something that could get you stressed out really over social media. It sounds stupid, but it happens to everybody. And then you just shut it down. You just disconnect for a few months, and that's how it's done. That's how it's supposed to be done.
Absolutely. That's the same with any goal. There's always distractions. You have to stay singularly focused on one thing. You can be good at a lot of things, but it's hard to be great unless you're doing just one thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, those are some great pieces of advice here. The Wizard, I'm going to call you the Wizard, Stann Efferding, via Las Vegas. Where's your next trip? Where are you off to next?
I'm in Seattle at the Emerald Cup this coming weekend, and then off to Canada after that.
All right, man. Well, hopefully we'll be crossing paths again soon at some of these bodybuilding championships and powerlifting championships all over Latin America. I know it's the fever is growing in Latin America. There's a lot of newer platforms coming up for,
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
So it's very exciting. Okay. Again,
that's awesome.
StannEfferding.com, right?
That's it. That's it. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.